Imagine being sent by your Caliph on a diplomatic mission across thousands of miles of unknown territory, through freezing steppes, past nomadic tribes who have never seen a man like you, through lands where the nights last so long that calculating prayer times becomes almost impossible, and then at the end of that journey finding yourself standing on the banks of the Volga River, face to face with the most fearsome warriors in the known world, men covered in tattoos from their fingernails to their necks, men who carried axes, swords and daggers at all times, men so physically imposing that Ibn Fadlan described them as being as tall as palm trees. That was the moment a 10th century Muslim scholar from Baghdad came face to face with the Vikings and wrote it all down. Today on Muslim Biographies we tell his story. Welcome back to Muslim Biographies, where we bring the stories of Islam's greatest figures to life. Today's episode is unlike anything we have covered before. It is the story of a man who was thrown into the unknown, kept his eyes open, kept his pen moving, and produced one of the most extraordinary eyewitness accounts in the entire history of the medieval world. His name was Ahmad Ibn Fadlan, and this is his story. Ahmad Ibn Fadlan was a 10th century Arab traveller from Baghdad, serving in the court of the Abbasid Caliph al-Muqtadir. Beyond that, almost nothing is known about his early life. What we know about him comes almost entirely from his own writing, a document called the Risala, meaning simply the account or the journal. He served as the religious advisor and lead counsellor for Islamic law in the Caliph's court, a man of considerable learning, sharp observation and remarkable courage. And it was Caliph al-Muqtadir who, in the year 921, sent Ibn Fadlan on a mission that would make him immortal. The purpose of the mission was to explain Islamic law to the recently converted Bulgar peoples living on the eastern bank of the Volga River in what is now Russia. The Bulgar king had converted to Islam and wanted Muslim allies, Muslim scholars and Muslim money to build a fortress against his enemies, the Khazars. Ibn Fadlan was the man tasked with delivering the message, the gifts and the religious instruction. The embassy left Baghdad on the 21st of June 921. They followed established caravan routes eastward toward Bukhara, then turned northward through northeastern Iran. Although promised safe passage by an Oghuz warlord, they were waylaid by bandits and had to bribe their way out. They spent an entire winter stranded near the Aral Sea before pushing north again in spring. All told, the delegation covered 4,000 kilometers, 2,500 miles, arriving at the Volga capital on the 12th of May 922. To this day, that date is an official public holiday in modern Tatarstan, Russia. A diplomatic mission sent by a Muslim caliph from Baghdad over 1,000 years ago, still commemorated in Russia today. Along the way, Ibn Fadlan encountered peoples no Arab writer had described in such detail: the Oghuz Turks, the Pechenegs, the Bashkirs, the Khazars. He documented their customs, their politics, their religious practices, and their social structures with a precision and curiosity extraordinary for his era. But none of these encounters would match what was waiting for him on the banks of the Volga. The Vikings, Ibn Fadlan called them the Rus or the Russia, were traders who had pushed deep into Eastern Europe along the great river systems, exchanging furs, amber, honey, swords and slaves for the silver and gold of the Muslim world. Their network of trade routes connected Scandinavia and the Baltic right across European Russia to the Muslim Abbasid Empire. And when Ibn Fadlan encountered them at a trading encampment on the Volga, he was completely unprepared for what he saw. He wrote, "I saw how the Rus had arrived with their wares and had pitched their camp beside the Volga River. Never did I see people so gigantic. They are as tall as palm trees and florid and ruddy of complexion. Everyone carries an axe, a dagger and a sword, and without these weapons they are never seen. From the tip of the fingernails to the neck, each man is tattooed with pictures of trees, living beings and other things." Ibn Fadlan was an educated Muslim scholar from one of the most sophisticated cities in the world. He had never seen anything like these men. He was simultaneously fascinated and horrified. He described their hygiene with barely concealed disgust. He documented their religious rituals, how they prostrated themselves before carved wooden idols at the riverside, offering prayers for a successful trading season. And then something happened that gave him a front row seat to one of the most extraordinary rituals in the entire Viking world. A chieftain of the Rus had died, and Ibn Fadlan was invited to witness the funeral. He wrote, "When a great man dies, the Rus do all kinds of things to honor him, the last of which is cremation. I wanted to know this custom in more detail, and one day I received news that one of their most important men had died. They put him in a tomb that they covered with a roof. They left the body in that place for 10 days until they finished preparing his trousseau." What followed over those 10 days was a process Ibn Fadlan documented with forensic detail. A third of the dead chieftain's wealth was spent brewing alcohol. Another third went on preparing his funeral garments. The remaining third was given to his family. One of his slave women volunteered to accompany her master into death, to be burned alongside him on the ship. Ibn Fadlan noted her voluntary declaration and her continued singing and drinking in the days leading up to the ceremony. When the day arrived, they ran one of their ships aground on the riverbank, raised it on a wooden platform, and carried the dead chieftain aboard. Animals were slaughtered, his weapons were placed beside him, and then the ship was set on fire. Standing nearby, Ibn Fadlan heard a Rusman say something to his interpreter. He asked what the man had said. The interpreter answered. He said, "You Arabs are foolish." I asked why. He replied, "Because you throw those you love and honor to the ground, where the earth and the maggots devour them, whereas we burn them up quickly, so they go to paradise at that very moment." That exchange between a 10th century Muslim scholar and a Viking standing beside a burning funeral ship on the Volga River is one of the most remarkable moments in the entire history of cross-cultural encounter. Two completely different worldviews, two completely different understandings of death and the afterlife, meeting face to face on the Russian steppe. Ibn Fadlan did not agree with what he saw. He found much of it disturbing, but he wrote it all down anyway, with the eye of a man who understood that what he was witnessing needed to be recorded. Where they burned the ship, the Rus built a circular mound. They placed in the middle a large piece of birch wood on which they carved the names of the dead man and his king. Then they left. Ibn Fadlan returned to Baghdad and wrote up his account for the Caliph. The Risala that he produced is unlike almost any other piece of writing from the medieval Islamic world. It is raw, immediate, journalistic writing from a man who was present, who observed everything himself, and who had the discipline to record it honestly, including the things that made him deeply uncomfortable. But for centuries the full text was lost. Only an incomplete version survived, published in 1823. It was not until 1923 that a more complete manuscript was discovered in a museum in Mashhad, Iran. 13 centuries old, 420 pages long. Even this version is not complete. The section describing Ibn Fadlan's return to Baghdad is missing entirely. We do not know what happened to him after the mission. We do not know when or how he died. He disappears from the historical record as quietly as he arrived. His story was introduced to millions through Michael Crichton's novel Eaters of the Dead in 1976 and the 1999 film The 13th Warrior, in which Ibn Fadlan is played by Antonio Banderas. But the real Ibn Fadlan was not a warrior. He was a scholar, a diplomat and a writer, and that makes his story more extraordinary, not less. In 2015, archaeologists excavating a 9th century Viking burial site found a silver ring set with a purple stone. Engraved on it in Arabic were the words Lillah, meaning for Allah. That ring, found in a Viking grave in Scandinavia, is physical proof of the extraordinary cultural contact that Ibn Fadlan witnessed and documented. The Muslim and Viking worlds were not as separate as we imagine. They were trading, interacting, influencing each other across thousands of miles of steppe and river, and Ibn Fadlan was there to write it down. He was sent to teach Islamic law to a king on the banks of the Volga. He completed that mission, but what he gave the world in the process was something far more valuable. A window into a moment in history that would otherwise be almost entirely invisible to us. He showed us the Vikings not through the eyes of their enemies or their admirers, but through the eyes of a curious, disciplined, deeply observant Muslim scholar who never expected to meet them and never forgot what he saw. If this episode has given you something to think about, please share it with someone who would appreciate it. And if you are not yet subscribed to Muslim Biographies, now is the time. Every week we bring you stories like this one. Stories of Muslim scholars, travelers and visionaries whose contributions shaped the world, but whose names are too often forgotten. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us on this journey, because there are so many more extraordinary stories still to tell, and we are just getting started.